It takes quite a lot to render the official national economic forecasts redundant in a week.
The shock is far from over. This is obvious to Australians living in Victoria. Growth will be lower, unemployment will be higher.
Treasury Secretary Stephen Kennedy last week conceded that the forecasts the government had released just 1 week earlier had already been rendered redundant by the escalating health crisis in Melbourne. And that was before the announcements yesterday that Melbourne would enter an unprecedented lockdown, and today the outlining of businesses that would also face shutdowns.
Moving to stage 4 restrictions and extending the lockdown means the cost to GDP has tripled from $6 billion to over $20 billion.
Andrew Charlton has been compiling data on spending patterns in Australia. Total spending in Victoria was already 14% below the level of other states last week, and spending in cafes right across the state, not just in Melbourne, is almost a third lower than in New South Wales.
There is firstly a real economy impact as the lockdown ensures the border stays closed, disrupts logistics and supply chains and reduces the flow of goods and tourists across the border. But secondly, there's an important symbolic effect which can knock confidence.
The Everleigh Hotel in Melbourne will persist with delivering bottled cocktails to a city under curfew. But there seems to have been a material change in people's attitudes to the virus that goes beyond broad measures of confidence.
I think there were definitely two different types of lockdown that we've seen so far. I think the first one was definitely a lot more of a novelty, where everybody was really getting behind seeing their favourite venues deliver their goods to their homes. And I think the second one has probably brought around a little more fear as to how many times can you shut down and how much support can you give before you really have to take care of your own bank accounts.
And this afternoon, more to absorb, with a shockingly long list of businesses and industry forced to close, everything from car dealerships to sex shops. But particularly significantly, the majority of the building industry, which has to date kept powering on through the pandemic. And there is more. In the rest of the country, consumers have been on a spending binge in the past couple of weeks, fuelled in part by a second $750 coronavirus payment to 3.5 million people, and by the widespread drawdown of superannuation savings.
We might end up in a double whammy situation where we are coming off the sugar hit of those stimulus and super payments and also hitting a trough of confidence as the Melbourne lockdown bites.
Politics is being forced to change by this new stage of the crisis. Blame games and attacks on state premiers for border restrictions are now more difficult.
I tell you what, we will deal with it. Victorians I know are up to it.
After weeks of resisting, the government this afternoon announced a $1,500 pandemic disaster payment for Victorians forced to self-isolate, who do not have sick leave and have been directed to stay at home by a public health official. Aged care workers employed as low-paid casuals are believed to have helped spread the disease because they could not afford to stay away from work and were working shifts in multiple aged care facilities. It's given a new urgency and focus to the debate about the casualisation of the workforce.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 7:30's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.